Well, happy feast to St. Joachim and Anne, to all of our grandparents. God bless you. It is so good to be with you today. God bless our grandparents. And if my dad were here, he would tell you this story about his grandson, my nephew. So at this point, grandson is 42 years old, but the nephew-grandson, he has an amazing gift, an incredible gift that used to drive my dad absolutely wild. So long story short, nephew Sean, when he wants to get a hold of you, he is very persistent. He calls once, no answer. A minute later, what does he do? And a minute later, and a minute later, and a minute later. And so one time my dad's like, oh, Bob, he called me 18 times in a row. I said, Dad, why didn't you just answer it on the first call? Oh, he didn't like that answer at all, right? And it's funny, hysterical, it's absolutely true. He is very persistent. And he has a confidence that if he calls enough, eventually, what are you going to do? You're going to answer. So there was a time, switched the tables a little bit, that I needed to talk to nephew, and it wasn't necessarily a great conversation. So I called once, he didn't answer, did he? So what did I do? I called a minute later. What did I do again? And a minute later. And about 27 minutes later, what did he finally do? And as silly as it is, when the nephew calls or the grandson calls, he actually believes with all his heart that if he calls enough time, eventually what are we going to do? That's a gift. That's a gift of persistence, of epic proportion. And I said to myself, if only we would be that relentless, that persistent in our calls to God. And the first reading today and the gospel are really clear stories that persistence is a spiritual gift. And that if we are relentless, persistent, if not obstinate, even in the face of challenges, in calling upon the Lord, then give God enough time, what is God going to do? Answer. And then you can sit here and say, well, I don't want to annoy God. Not possible. If God was going to be annoyed, he would have been annoyed by Abraham, who was just exhausting, wasn't he? But God doesn't get annoyed. In fact, the promise of the Lord, ask and you will, seek and you will, knock and the door will, and it might not be on the first time. But how do we pray for the grace, the spiritual grace of persistence? That every time we turn to the Lord, honestly, just like my nephew, we trust, we believe, we have a confidence that in time, in God's time, God will answer. And in that moment, then our song will be just like the psalmist. Lord, on the day I called for help, you answered me, you answered me. Lord, on the day I called for help, you answered me, you answered me. And we pray for the grace of persistence. Maybe not on the first call or the first knock, but if we trust and believe, relentless, almost obstinate, if not confident, and the Lord will answer. The Lord will open, and the Lord will provide for everything that we need.